So in the context of environmental conservation efforts that are taken in India, it will be easier if we can make a timeline of events. Okay, so what all have happened in the last 2 centuries in the context of forest conservation, environmental conservation. So that if you have this timeline, it will be easier for you to so make a broad mental framework and correlate any of the environment related topics over there if you know this rough timeline. Fine. So let's make a timeline first. Okay, so then we'll continue. Okay, so you can take a complete single sheet of paper and make this timeline over there. In fact, if you want to make it in a bigger paper also, you can do that and add it on the study wall, okay, so of your room, and so use it to revise regularly, because this gives you a mental map. All national initiatives together. So the modern day idea of forest conservation protection would begin during the British administration in the year 1864, when the British government established Imperial Forest Department. Imperial Forest Department. This was established under the leadership of Sir Dietrich Brandes. Sir Dietrich Brandes, he is known as the father of tropical forestry. Before 1864, whatever the method of conservation, whatever the initiatives which were there in India to protect the forest, it was all cultural aspects. Okay, so historically we hear about various different instances where the rulers and kings were, had given preference to the environmental protection. For example, Ashoka had made a very strict punishment for the people who show cruelty to animals. Fine. And also, so the idea of forest conservation, that is very clearly mentioned in our Vedas and other scriptures, right? The overall nature of the forest is very clearly described in many of our epics, okay, so including Mahabharata, Ramayana, and so wahan par to baat hota hai, and it has been our tradition to protect the forest. But however, the modern method of conservation started with the establishment of Indian Imperial Forest Department. Okay, so that was established in 1864, and this was established purely for commercial purpose. Okay, so because the British government wanted to utilize the forest as a timber source and wanted to export it to Europe. Okay, so to manage the timber source, they established this department, and they wanted a proper legislation, and that is when they brought a legislation also, the first legislation, Indian Forest Act of 1865. Sorry, 1865. Indian Forest Act of 1865. This is the first piece of legislation which gives some clarity regarding the powers and responsibilities of the government, where the government takes complete control of the Indian forest and so declares to be the owner of Indian forests, and so it gives some idea of reserve forest, protected forest, and few of these provisions to ensure that the forests are protected in India. Protected in the sense, not in the environmental or ecological sense, because there was no such idea of environmental or ecological protection back then. It was mainly protecting from exploitation, protecting from misuse, or protecting from, let's say, forest fire and illegal cutting, all of that kind of protection. Okay, so that was beginning with the Indian Forest Act of 1865. In the year 1867, Imperial Forest Service was established. The predecessor of the present day Indian Forest Service. Okay, so it began in 1867, where they wanted to have a cadre of officers to manage the Indian forest. Okay, so that begins with the establishment of Imperial Forest Service, and initially these officers were trained in Germany. Okay, so the way, so Indian civil service officers were trained in London. Okay, so in the same way, so they were trained in Germany because Germany had done wonderful work in the protection of forest and the research of forest. So they were sent to Germany back then, and so they were trained over there. It was in the year 1906. The Forest Research Institute of Dehradun was established. Very famously called as FRI. Forest Research Institute of Dehradun was established. So if at all any of you are aware about this institute, it's a wonderful colonial structure. It's a huge campus. I'm sure most of you would have seen this either directly or indirectly in movies. Okay, so it's a very famous favorite place for our Bollywood. Okay, so the beautiful campus of Forest Research Institute FRI. Okay, so I'm sure you would have seen this in movies and you would identify this. The significance of this, there are three bodies here, three institutes here. One is the Forest Research Institute here, the main building. So inside this, we also have the Forest Survey of India. Okay, so and also the training academy for Indian Forest Service officers. That is Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy. That is also located in the same campus. Okay, so and after the establishment of this FRI institute, the Forest Service officers were actually trained from here only. Okay, so it continued till 1935. It was in the year 1927. Indian Forest Act was replaced with the earlier version of 1865 Indian Forest Act. This was a new Indian Forest Act with more detailed provisions, and this is presently the act which actually governs the Indian forest right now. Okay, so it's going to be nearly 100 years since we have this act, and so very minimal number of provisions are there, but still one of the very effective acts to control the Indian forest. And as I told you, so it's mainly with the intention of so covering the forest in terms of economical value rather than ecological value. It was in the year 1935. The forestry subject was transferred to provincial list. Because we all know about 1935, so we had this Government of India Act of 1935, which brought the idea of federation. So back then we, before that, forestry was dealt under the central list. Now it was transferred to the forestry as a provincial list. And from here, the overall management of forestry would go to the respective provinces. And it was in 1949 with the enactment of Indian Constitution, the same forestry subject was retained in the state list. It became the primary responsibility of the state to manage the Indian forests. Okay, so forests included the wildlife also. In the year 1966, the present Indian Forest Service was established using the powers given to Rajya Sabha to establish a new All India service. Okay, so before that there were only two All India services. One is Indian Administrative Service, second one is Indian Police Service, IAS and IPS. The third All India Service of Indian Forest Service was established in the year 1966. And the overall intention was to bring the forest administration into some control of the center, and to have a better coordination between the center and state in the context of forest administration and governance. because till now, in even 1966 also, the forestry was completely state subject, and each state used to deal with their forest in a different manner. Okay, so there was no clarity, there was no synchronization of so policy here. To have some control and some synchronization at the all India level, to have some greater control over the forests of India, the central government brought this Indian Forest Service, and so the service is being continued since then. Okay, so even now we have, so we all know that the Indian Civil Services, okay, so jo civil services examination conducted by UPSC also has the forest service examination as common in preliminary stage, and main stage is separate. Okay, so and जैसे selection होगा तो उनका तो वही ऑल इंडिया सर्विस के अंडर आ जाते हैं, सो एंड दैट उनका ट्रेनिंग लबासना में जो फाउंडेशन कोर्स होगा, सो फिर उसके बाद में सो द सेम फॉरेस्ट रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट FRI के अंदर जो कैंपस है, तो अकेडमी है, तो उसके अंदर ट्रेनिंग होगा. सो दैट इज व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड दिस द प्रेजेंट डे इंडियन फॉरेस्ट सर्विस. It was established in the year 1966. It was in the year 1972, the very famous and the most powerful act, that is Wildlife Protection Act. Was brought in India in the context of wildlife protection, clearing, so providing detailed provisions for wildlife protection in India. That was Wildlife Protection Act. It was in the next year, in 1973, the very famous Project Tiger was started. So one of the earliest such kind of wildlife conservation programs was started in the world, we can say. Through this we established tiger reserves across India, and through that we wanted to protect the tigers and increase the number of tigers, and we were able to do so over a period of time. A wonderfully successful project, you can say. So from here it begins the conservation efforts for wildlife in India. It was in the year 1974. To control water pollution, we brought Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, commonly called as Water Act. The full form is Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. Through this, we see the establishment of CPCB, SPCB, and clear-cut provisions to control water pollution in India. It was in the year 1980. Okay, so yeah, there's one more thing I missed. It was in the year 1976, through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. We bring some more changes to forest administration in India. So first of all, forestry and wildlife was transferred to concurrent list. So till here it was under the state list in the respective state government, where the forest departments used to handle the subject of forestry and wildlife. So now it has become the joint responsibility of the both state and center. In addition to this, 2 new articles were introduced in the Indian Constitution, specifically dealing with the forest and wildlife protection, Article 48A and Article 51A. Article 48A talks about the DPSP. Article 51A talks about fundamental duty, both in the context of forest and wildlife. We have 2 specific articles in the Indian Constitution which specifically talks about the responsibility of the state to protect the forests of India, protect the wildlife of India. That becomes part of DPSP. At the same time, the fundamental duty of every citizen to protect, conserve the forests of India as well as the wildlife of India. So that becomes a part of 51A. Okay, so further changes, additions would be made in this context later through Supreme Court judgments. Okay, so gradually it has been included as part of Article 21 itself. Okay, so the right to clean environment. So moving ahead, in 1980, we have another landmark legislation. Forest Conservation Act, which makes it compulsory for creation of a compensatory afforestation whenever a part of the forest is being diverted for non-forestry activities, and also provides for the establishment of provision of compensation. In the year 1981, we bring Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, commonly called as Air Act. The provision given under the Water Act of 1974 was extended to air pollution. The same bodies of CPCB and SPCB being given the powers to control air pollution in India. That was in 1981. It was finally in the year of 1985 we see the establishment of a separate ministry for environment and forest. Till then it was just a department. So even department was separately established in the year 1980. Okay, before that it was part of a Department of Science and Technology itself. Okay, so after that it became department. Now it has become a separate ministry. Now the same ministry will be renamed in the year, I think 2015 or 16 if I am not wrong. So that was renamed as the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, so that was in the year 1985. It was in the year 1986 we have one of the most powerful act. It's called as the Umbrella Act, Environment Protection Act. The most powerful act which gives almost unlimited power to central government to protect the environment of India, to take any action as it deems necessary. In the year 1988 we bring National Forest Policy. The present national policy on forest, which has set a target of 33% of national forest coverage, which is yet to be achieved, and right now we are trying to implement the objectives of the same national forest policy. In the year 1992 we brought another major conservation projects in the context of environment, that is Project Elephant. On the same lines as that of Project Tiger. In the year 2002, after signing and ratifying the Convention on Biological Diversity, we brought a legislation to protect the biodiversity of India called as Biodiversity Act. Biodiversity Act, which provides for the establishment of bodies such as National Biodiversity Authority, State Biodiversity Board, Biodiversity Management Committee, and clear-cut provisions for the sharing of benefits in India. So that was done in the year 2002. In the year 2006, we have finally an act for recognizing the rights of forest dwellers, commonly called as Forest Rights Act. Recognizing the rights of forest dwellers to live inside the forest and even to hold the land, own the land inside the forest. Okay, so recognizing their rights to collect the minor forest produce as well as some community rights. Okay, all of these provisions were given under the Forest Rights Act of 2006. It was in the year 2010 we bring another important piece of legislation, National Green Tribunal Act, to fasten the process of so justice delivery related to the environment and so the pollution related aspects, that resulted in the establishment of a separate tribunal for environmental cases. That is what is we called as the National Green Tribunal Act. In the year 2016, we bring another legislation called as CAMPA Act. Okay, so this is specifically for compensatory afforestation to manage the so the compensation which we have taken from the Forest Conservation Act in the name of compensatory afforestation. We wanted to have a separate fund and a body to so operate that fund, and that is what is called as CAMPA Act. So in between there is also a very famous Supreme Court case. Let's add this here. Which is a landmark case in the context of forest conservation in India. That was in the year 1996. T.N. Godavarman versus Union of India, which gives the definition of forest in India and also control the cutting down of forest in India. So this is the complete so time frame of events which have happened in the context of the environmental governance in India. Okay, so try to remember this, try to make a mental map, a framework, and try to fit in every other initiatives around this timeline. It will become easier for you to remember. Fine. In fact, you can add some more schemes and programs of recent times. For example, in the year 2008, we have the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Okay, so and 2014 was when we initiated the Namami Gange program. And अब ऐसे जो भी extra है वो add कर सकते हैं. मैंने तो basic framework आपको दे दिया. Okay, so I hope this is useful for you.